The Senate Homeland Security Committee is investigating the security and intelligence failures at the U.S. consulate in Benghazi that have also been, of course, part of the continuing controversy over Susan Rice's possible nomination to be Secretary of State. Joining me now is the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, Joe Lieberman. Thanks so much, Senator, for joining us. You had a 4-hour session with all of the major players from all the agencies, so I know you've heard all the intelligence. What are your biggest concerns now about the failures leading up to Benghazi?
Yeah, this is one in a continuing series of briefings our Homeland Security Committee has had. The more you do this, the more you understand. We're focused I'm focused on really two parts of what happened. Did the State Department do enough to protect American personnel in Benghazi based on the intelligence of a growing terrorist threat there before the attack? Or should it have closed our mission there because they were unable to protect them? And secondly, why wasn't the Defense Department able to get assistance to our American personnel on the ground there once the attack started? It probably would have been impossible to save the life of Ambassador Stevens and the other man who was with him who died as a result of the fire that the terrorists set. But 7 hours later, 2 SEALs were killed, and a timely arrival of American military personnel, I think, could have saved their lives. And to me, this is really another example of the way in which our military is being stretched. I mean, basically, we didn't have enough assets either on the waters off of Libya or somewhere near enough by that help could have gotten there to save the lives of a couple of brave Americans. So to me, those are the big questions. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in what happened after the attack and what Ambassador Rice said. And that's not inconsequential, but it's not one of the great lessons to be learned from this tragic event.
From what you know so far, I know the investigation is proceeding, but do you think the State Department ignored not only warnings but incidents, and that mission should have been closed?
Well, I haven't reached a conclusion yet, but I can tell you, having looked at all of the classified intelligence, there was really a growing crescendo of evidence that eastern Libya, Benghazi, was becoming a kind of outlawed territory. Al-Qaeda-related groups, radical militias there, and well known that the place was just teeming with weapons that had been seized from the Gaddafi government. It was a very dangerous brew, and there was also, incidentally, unclassified, open source information that we had. There had been a previous attack. A bomb exploded outside our Benghazi mission. The British diplomatic mission had been attacked. Personnel had been attacked. Red Cross mission. In fact, the British government closed its mission in Benghazi. So I haven't reached a conclusion, but I worry that there was a lot of evidence here that was not adequately responded to.
Do you think what Susan Rice said after the fact should be enough to prevent her from being nominated and successfully confirmed for Secretary of State?
I don't. I mean, I'm not. The question of who President Obama nominates for Secretary of State is obviously up to the president. That's a right he's earned by his re-election. But I've been over the intelligence, the talking points that were given to Ambassador Rice. I've read over her statements on television that Sunday morning over and over again. I've met with her and the acting director of the CIA, and it seems to me that everything she said on those many appearances that Sunday morning were within the talking points that she had been given by the intelligence community. Look, did at one point or another she leave an adjective out that she should have put in, or been a little more certain about something? Then my guess is she wishes now that she had been, of course. But I think if anybody in Washington, particularly in Congress, ought to have a little sense of mercy about those kinds of errors, because they were not, in my opinion, intentional attempts to deceive the American people. She said basically what the intelligence community told her was the truth as they tentatively understood it on the day that she went on national television.
Senator, I know you're leaving the Senate. Are you open to being in a foreign policy team or in the Obama cabinet? Are you being vetted?
No, I'm completely unvetted at this time. So no, that's not my plan. I mean, look, I always say that, and I really feel this, that anytime a president calls anybody, and I'm saying it for myself, to serve our country, any president, that you got to give it serious consideration. Particularly, I've spent my life in public service, but that's not my plan, and I'm not waiting by the telephone.
And I wanted to ask you about the Palestinian vote, because the UN vote today is going to be overwhelmingly in favor of non-member status at the General Assembly for the Palestinians. They've been told by the U.S. repeatedly that this is a step backwards, but their argument is that they've been waiting for 20 years or longer and that the negotiations are going nowhere. What is your take on this? Because Chuck Schumer is talking about a defense appropriations amendment which would take money away from the West Bank if they proceed.
Yeah, I mean, the vote in the United Nations, I would say, is not surprising, but still disappointing, because really nothing is achieved by it. The only way to create progress toward the two-state solution, which I support and most people certainly here in Congress support, Jewish state of Israel living in peace next to a Palestinian state, both independent, that's only going to be accomplished as a result of direct negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians. And therefore, I know there was a certain amount of pressure on the leadership of the Palestinian Authority to take this resolution to the United Nations, particularly after what happened in Gaza and Hamas, which is really the opposition, in some senses the enemy, inside Palestinian politics of the Fatah Palestinian Authority leadership. There was pressure on President Abbas of the Palestinian Authority to do something significant, or that at least was proactive. But really, in the end, the best thing that President Abbas could do is to agree to come back to the negotiating table without any preconditions with the Israelis. And I appreciate the position that the Obama administration has taken in this, in trying to convince the Palestinian Authority not to ask for this vote at the UN. It undercuts trust, and it doesn't help the Palestinian cause on the ground, I don't believe, because ultimately the Palestinian people are not going to attain statehood through the United Nations. They're going to attain statehood as a result of negotiations with the Israeli government.